Okay, students, when I was younger, I found it very helpful that teachers read to us and that we learn a lot of important morals and virtues through stories and through journeys that others have taken. And I like to write, and so I chose, instead of just giving you 7 strategies and 7 insights, I chose to put it in a story that I'm going to read to you guys, and so I'll give you each a copy. So you can go on with it. In this story, our journeyer has 7 encounters with 7 different creatures. You can just pass them back if you'd like. Thank you. And with each encounter, they learn something. They learn more than something. They learn a few things. And so I'm just going to read it to you, and you guys can just follow along. And I just want you to take this time to use your imaginations. And like I said, I didn't map out the strategies and insights, word for word, verbatim. I want you guys to kind of pull from each encounter what our journeyer learns in the story. So it's called A Journey Through 7, which means 7 in German. So, one day I set out on a journey, unknowing of where I'd land. I heard the world beckoning to me, so I held the west wind's hand. I sailed the open sea until I hit the sandy shore. Awaiting me there on that bright day would change me then and forevermore. The signs had Sieben with an arrow and path. I thought to myself, this is odd. I knew I was awake and not in a dream. I asked, could it be a facade? I followed the path a few bends in, when all of a sudden I froze. I heard the sound of singing and playing and quickly looked down near my toes. There I saw a few mice dancing and running all around. Such fun they were having, cheering and chasing, but one tiny mouse stood alone with a frown. I quietly approached in subtle silence, this soft little docile thing, and asked why he was sitting alone underneath the dogwood tree. His reply was hesitant and a little sad, but worth the listening. He spoke of loneliness and differences. He told me he was unique. I said, all mice are different, no one's the same. He replied, they call me a freak. I explained to him that he judges himself, and then he explained to me that being made fun of hurts a lot, and no one can stop his torment, not I nor he. So I sat and listened like none had before, and as he spoke to me, I felt a melting within myself. I saw a melting and change in he. Again on my path I walked along, and again I was stopped in my tracks. A bird swooped down right by my head and landed nearby against the golden haystacks. This owl, I noticed, could not stand still. He flittered and twittered and flew. I could barely get a word in with him. I wasn't quite sure what to do. I inquired to him as to where the path went. We laughed about where it could go. I asked him to help me by flying ahead and looking out for dangers so that I would know. Immediately, his focus changed. He was keen to complete his task. He explained that he was a great tracker and can do what I had asked. So off he flew and hooted away. He left me with ambition to walk on my path with the focus in mind, a changed heart with the mission. Back on the road, my eyes wide open, I nearly jumped out of my skin. When slithering by came the scariest snake, I was shaken deep within. He hissed at me while his tongue flickered, his eyes focused on mine. It took all of my strength to return his gaze. He whispered, don't fear, all will be fine. I was stunned to hear that his words were soothing, that most of my fears were injustice. The snake who spoke with passion and love was something I judged by his surface. Again I walked on the twisting and turning until I felt a cool splash. I looked down in the shining waters and I saw something glinting with a flash. In this tiny pond, on this long journey, I was met by a sporadic young fish who could not remember one thing from another. He wanted the answer, that's all he could wish. Instead of just giving him all that he seeked, I gave him plenty of clues. I asked him questions, we spoke back and forth, and finally he reached what he already knew. It felt good to know that our knowledge is stored inside our active minds, to make the connections I'd made so far, blurring and drawing the lines. I continued on this colorful journey through this whirling world, when up from a tree purred down at me twin cats with hair that was curled. They were definitely similar in their looks. They wanted to prove they weren't alike. I asked them to do the very same task. They jumped from their perch and we went for a hike. I asked them to race up the hill as fast as their paws could carry. Once they were down at the very same time, my twin friends were not so merry. They ran the same race at the same pace, but the end result was change. Only when they explained what they learned and felt, they saw where their differences ranged. Weary and tired from all I had learned, I continued to walk down my path. I didn't know when this journey would end or what would be the aftermath. Around the last bend in the road, I came to a final stop. I heard a noise come from behind, a loud clippity-clop. There, standing beside me, stood a wise horse. He asked me where I had been. I said I'd been through all the land, a journey through Siben. He said, I am here to take you back, to share what you have learned. All have taught and all have changed a knowledge you have earned. The end.